When I was on Shark Tank, so we all had different industries. Every single one of us thought that ours was the hardest.
Being a founder is almost like you're constantly taking on trauma.
Stress is the biggest killer on the planet. It kills more people than anyone else, but we manifest it. Actually, 99% of our stresses are from what could happen.
Before you really step away from your business, you need to step away for a moment to work out what you actually want. Burnout and being in that fight or flight mentality can prevent you from making decisions because you aren't thinking clearly and you are just trying to get away from the pain.
If you love it, you want to be the customer of your product, then that's a start.
We are back with another episode of the Do As I Say, Not As I Did podcast. And as always, the name kind of explains the entire show. We're giving you advice based on everything we did wrong the first time. That's kind of presumptuous. Janine has had a lot more success than me, but it's at least everything I've done wrong the first time. Each week I bring on founders, investors, product experts, technology futurists, sales gurus, and just about anyone who is incredibly smart and can help us work out how to build a great business. And then together, we answer the questions about what is going on in your lives and in your businesses. We find them on Reddit or people send them in, but these are just questions that the guests have never seen before. They've never heard them before. They're hearing them live for the first time just as you. So this is just straight off the top of the head. So if you do have questions or you're trying to put out fires in your business, send us an email and we'll workshop on the show with a guest. Send those emails through to podcast@joelditrapani.com. I know that is a mouthful of a email address and I probably should choose an easier one, but it's in the show notes so you can just copy and paste that later on. I'm your host, Joel Trapani, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Vigo, which is an edtech scale-up. We've grown it through Australia, we've grown it through the UK, and now we are now absolutely focused on the US. On top of that, I'm also an advisor and a coach in the product space where I help startups and businesses work out how to run great product teams, because that is the secret to building great products. It's something I got wrong time and time again for a long time. And today, I'm genuinely very excited and shocked to be joined by Shark Tank Shark, Janine Allis, the founder of Boost Juice Bars. Boost is a juice and smoothie bar chain that has nearly 700 stores in 12 countries around the world. And honestly, I said this off mic before, but mango magic smoothies are one of the things from Australia that I miss the most when I'm in the US. So if you go to a Boost juice bar, that is my absolute favorite. But look, after significant success scaling Boost, Janine has also created a franchise support backend system called Retail Zoo to help other brands scale across Australia and the world, where she's helped a number of other household names build their brands. Janine is one of the biggest entrepreneur personalities in Australia and probably the world, and has been regularly recognized with national and international awards for her business success. She's been on major TV shows like Survivor, Celebrity Apprentice, and was one of the sharks on Shark Tank for years, and has her own podcast called Super Women We Ain't. Adding to this insane list of accolades, Janine is also a best-selling author with her book called The Accidental Entrepreneur, which is a part business book, part biography, where she tells the story of how Boost Juice just exploded across the world and the lessons she learned along the way of what it takes to actually build a brand that people care about, which is a unique skill. Outside of work, Janine is a fierce advocate for health and well-being, constantly giving back to the community to help build the next generation of entrepreneurs in Australia. And perhaps the most inspiring element of Janine's whole story is that she actually didn't kick off her entrepreneurial journey until she was in her 30s and already had kids. So Janine spent her 20s traveling the world and experiencing everything it had to offer, including, which kind of seems fake, even working on David Bowie's super yacht. So Janine really has kind of experienced the entire world and what it has to offer. So Janine is an absolute expert at scaling businesses and building up the community. And I'm super excited to have her on. So welcome. So thank you so much for coming on today, Janine. I genuinely am shocked that you said yes when I reached out.
Wow, that's a mouthful, Joel.
It was actually hard to write your intro because normally I try and keep them kind of short, but I was like, there's just a never-ending list of like incredible stuff that you've done that I didn't want to leave out. Like this was my final cut after going through and like cutting out a bunch of other incredible stuff that you've done.
Yeah, no, I like to keep busy.
You do. Well, look, but before we jump in, I thought it'd be cool. You've just launched like a new way to help people start their own businesses and on their own business journey. Do you mind telling us about how you're starting to build up the community in that aspect right now?
Pretty much. Look, I started Boost Juice Bars when I was 32 with 3 little kids, and I had no idea about business. So I learned everything from trial and error, asking people, taking people for coffee. Unfortunately, Google didn't kind of exist back then, so it was pretty much lots of phone calls and lots of coffees. I didn't go to university, so I finished school at 16 and went to something called a tech schools, which taught you more about building woodwork and sheet metal than it did talk to you about economics. So in some respects, I my approach to business was common sense and always focusing on the customer. So it was always like, what do I want as a customer? What would I expect if I went into a store? What would make me spend money to an establishment? So I sort of always approached it that way, and even to this day, I still do. And the business side of it, it literally was, the business course I did was called Boost Juice. And so if I spent $500 an hour on a lawyer, I would use that as a course. So I would do a legal course on whatever topic I was talking to him about. So I'd sit there and, unlike most people who just don't even read their contracts, I would read their contracts and highlight everything I didn't understand, which was nearly the whole document. And I would sit there and ask him all the questions about, right, okay, come on, tell me the answers to this, and why is it that, and why do we do that? What I discovered with that was they get it wrong a lot. So your so-called experts out there, they get it. So the more knowledge we can get and the more understanding we can understand a business, the less mistakes we're going to make. And so going back to your question on the Business Academy and why I did it was, I just wish there was something out there back then that wasn't done by someone who's never done business before, not someone who learned it from a book and just translated it, but really learned it from all the mistakes that you do in business, and ensuring that it was a simple approach to success by doing it in a way that isn't complicated. And I think that if you said what was my superpower, it would be making complicated things simple, or asking the right questions to go, oh, actually, that's not complicated at all. Like, what accountants and lawyers like to do is throw these big words at you so you go, oh, I need them because I don't understand them. In actual fact, when you break it down, whatever they're telling you is actually really basic.
Yeah. I really love that. And I find myself out on my own entrepreneurial journey. Every time someone's trying to teach me something, I'm like, have you done this? Because if you haven't, I kind of don't care. And I love that you're building that from your own experiences. Like, here are the lessons and the mistakes that I've made, and sharing that so openly with the community.
That's right. And funnily enough, when you look back at all the lessons there and all the things you made wrong, none of them were wrong in hindsight, because it gave you the tool to make sure you avoid in the future. And your business, even though it costs money and you go backwards, it's definitely the best thing you can possibly do is make mistakes all the time. Because if you're actually not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. Have you got kids, Joel?
No, I don't know how you did a business with kids. I struggle just on my own.
No. All right. Are you into sport? What are you into?
Well,
like, what's your
my go-to is just work all the time, but on top of that, I love fitness, and I love following boxing.
Boxing, right? Okay, boxing's a perfect example, right? So if you want to get better at boxing, or you want to have a good weekend, you've got to have the odd bruise, right? You can't come out scaled. Like, if you have a really good weekend and you get on a bike and you fall over and you scratch your knee, well, that's a good weekend because you're on a bike. If you went surfing, you got slammed and you might have had a bruise from something. So what I'm saying is that to actually progress and to have the biggest possible life you can get, you're going to get things wrong. You're going to get bruises. You're going to get scratches. So what I'm saying is that scratches and bruises and mistakes are good.
Yeah. I definitely know, like, the lessons that I've learned the deepest, and and the things that I think I do best in my company come from making the mistakes and feeling that pain that's come with it. Because if you just kind of get something right, a lot of the time you kind of like fluked it the first time, and it's the mistakes that really truly help me learn properly. All right, well, let's use that, and let's jump into some of the problems and maybe mistakes that other people are facing in their business right now. So this first challenge is called how to deal with burnout. Seriously burned out and having trouble getting over this mental block. And I have an opportunity right now to get out of my business for 8 figures, and I'm seriously considering it, but I just feel lost. Not sure if this is just a rant or needing advice, but it's been hard. I'm doing well, no doubt, but that just doesn't seem to matter anymore, as it's taking such a toll on my mental health. I guess I just need a proper detox and maybe relaxation activities. What do I do? From Fish Pakoras.
Yeah, look, good question. And it's a question that has a question and statement probably that every single person who's ever run a business actually knows and feels. There is absolutely times where you go, I am done. You could write a check for $1 and I'm out of here because it's just too hard sometimes. And, same with parenting, right? Sometimes you go, if they say the name mum once more, I'm going to scream, right? I think the key thing is that, it's okay not to like your business sometimes. Sometimes it's just hard work and it seems like a real grind. You've got to ask yourself before you sort of pull the trigger and maybe go down a path that you can't turn back, ask yourself, what do you want? I think that the business has its needs, and that's a different entity to what you want. And if it is, I want to get rewarded from all the hard work and get and sell my business, and then think about something else after I have a break, that's okay. Do that. But what I would suggest is, before you, if you're on the fence and going, do I go down that path or not? I used to take myself to health retreats, or I got into yoga, so I take myself to a yoga retreat. And so, what's important is you take yourself away from the environment you're in, and you go somewhere, not somewhere to party, not somewhere to look after other people, but look after yourself. So health retreats are a great environment. Like, there's some great ones in Australia, whether it's Gwingana or Camp Eden or Golden Door. There's quite a few in Australia. If you go there and just sit on a mountain and ask yourself what you want to do, but you've got to get yourself out of that fight and flight response, and you've got to get yourself back into that area where you can feel calm and make good decisions. And that's where you make a decision, not when you're in that fight and flight response, which you will make the wrong decision in that response. So I think I said, go on a mountain. So basically, sit on a mountain under a tree and just quietly ask yourself what you want to do, and it will come to you. It really will. But I think, give your body and brain time to repair, to be able to make that right decision.
Yeah, I had a mentor telling me this year. He said, being a founder is almost like you're constantly taking on trauma because you're just dealing with like issues all of the time. So he said, when you're feeling burnt out, it's almost like you have to peel away the layers of trauma. And I think the only way to do that is to just get away. I'd love to, like, these retreats that you do, how long is that? Because obviously, like, sometimes you just think, oh, I'll take an afternoon off, but how long does it take to really step away and be able to think clearly, to really be out of that fight or flight mentality?
Yeah, look, for me, it was 5 days. So the retreat I always did, 5 days seemed enough. The first 2 days was not enough. Third day, I was like, yep, 5 days, I'm ready to get back into it. So I found it was five for me, but it's different for everyone. Some people might be 3 months going on into a hike in the Himalayas. Some people might be just a weekend away on their own. But everyone needs their coping mechanisms. And so coping mechanism could be hanging out with the girls and just having a laugh and just downloading all your problems, and just them having a big laugh, or it could be, yoga is phenomenal for me, and was a game changer for me to manage my stress and how I thought, because it was all about, pranayamas and breathing and the asanas and the exercise of it. So it was gold for me. So you got to find what suits you. I think the key thing is, the best decision you can make is a decision made by a healthy mind and body. So I think if you're getting pissed every night, or drinking every night, or you're eating crap and you're not exercising, well, you're not going to be making decisions that are at your ultimate decision making capabilities.
Yeah, I guess if you're constantly pushing it yourself to that level where like burnout's just around the corner, in that space, if you're not putting the foundations in on yourself and coming to work healthy and coming to work, relaxed, at least some of the time, the decisions you're making are also going to be impaired. Like, there's no way that you're coming to work and bringing the absolute best version of yourself when you're just stressed out 24/7.
No, correct. Was that a question or a statement?
I don't know. Who knows? But look, I guess maybe I'll try and bring this one to a close here. So for Fish Pakoras, who's very burnt out, the first thing I'd say is, you've got an 8-figure deal on the table. That is an interesting deal to consider taking if you've had enough of your business. But before you make that decision, before you really step away from your business, you really you need to step away for a moment to work out what you actually want. Because burnout and being in that fight or flight mentality can prevent you from making good decisions because you aren't thinking clearly, and you are just trying to get away from the pain. So, as Janine said, take some time away. Find the thing that you need to do, but don't like overload yourself with input. Don't go into like a big party town or on a mass holiday. Take some time away to be quiet and to get I guess, reflective and introspective before you can actually make that decision. And take 3 days away, 5 days away, a week away, whatever you need to almost like calm your brain down a little bit before you can make that. Then decide what you want to do. But to prevent burnout, just I guess it's almost needs to be proactive as well. Put the right foundations in, do things like yoga or meditation or the things that make sense for you in your life. Anything missed there, Janine, for this founder?
No, I think that's right, and don't beat yourself up. Like I think the other thing I would say is check who you're surrounding yourself with. Are the people you're surrounding yourself, are they winding you up? Because half of the stress that comes from you go home at work and you go, right, this happened, and they go, oh my god, that's outrageous, and then suddenly you go, yeah, you're right, and you become this mountain becomes out of this molehill that really shouldn't be a mountain, but suddenly is a mountain. So I think try and also be that person when someone comes to you in that really manic stress thing, to just go, okay, let's talk about perspective, let's look at it, let's not make it bigger than what it is too. I think that sort of doesn't help with stress.
You can't always cut the stress out of your work, but a lot of the time you can cut the other stresses out of your life. So I think being very conscious about who you surround yourself with and the kinds of things you do outside of work as well really do contribute to your day to day. So absolutely, that's a great point. Like, think about the people that you're surrounding with, and does life get more stressful when you go home or less stressful? Because you need to kind of balance wherever you can, and you either need to cut it out from work.
I think you also got to consider, like, you said you're fairly fit, Joel, right?
I like to think so, but I don't know if my wife would agree.
Okay, so you go to the gym. You go to the gym and your muscles hurt after a gym workout, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you're not, you should go harder, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is you're tearing and damaging your muscles, and then the muscles actually then will repair, and so it makes you stronger. So then next time you go to the gym, you can pull a bigger weight. The same thing's with stress. Like, I think that we are so lucky that we're born in this country called Australia, where the front page is talking about Victoria Beckham's bunions, right? So we're so lucky. But I think also understand that stress stress is a bit like a muscle. It can actually help with resilience, but equally, if you push it too hard, like a muscle, it will break and you'll do damage. So I think don't also see it as have a way of de-stressing, but stress is actually not a bad thing, because we need resilience, we need grit, we need to toughen up sometimes. So I think that be aware that yes, have your coping mechanisms, but it's not that bad if you sort of have to push yourself a little bit and you're feeling a bit under the pump.
Yeah, and startups by design are uncomfortable and stressful. So if you're stepping into building a business, you are going to go through a lot of stress. But I guess it's an interesting comparison.
But stress isn't real, right? You know that, don't you? Like stress is the biggest killer on the planet, right? It kills more people than anyone else, with heart disease and strokes and everything else. But we manifest it. It's not like something you can catch like COVID. It's not something that you can break like a bone. It's something that we manifest. And so I think that because it's something that we manifest, we have to have mechanisms to actually manage it, so it doesn't become a negative. Instead, it becomes a positive. So, but always know that we make it up. And most of our stresses, actually 99% of our stresses, are from what could happen, not what is happening today.
Yes, sometimes, when I'm getting very stressed out at work, I occasionally just start to laugh and think like, I'm doing this to myself. Like, I am the one setting these expectations on myself. I am the one who wants this to be bigger and better and more and faster. Whereas like, I think, one coping mechanism I have is to also reflect on like, look how far things have come. Like, this was all seemed impossible at the beginning. And I'm sure you've gone through that time and time again, because what you've achieved is insane. Like, I'd love to know, did you see, like, when you first started your first Boost Juice bar, did you see the nearly 700 stores worldwide? Was that the ambition from the beginning?
Look, I always used to go overseas particularly when we were launching Boost overseas, and I used to go, our brand's as good as these ones. So if they can survive, if they can thrive, why can't we? So I never put. You got to remember, I didn't have any sort of experience in business, so I didn't put a glass ceiling on what we could have achieved. Honestly, I was having 3 little kids at home and running this business. I didn't have time to think about where the business is going to go. But we did, we had a great group, like this business I did with my husband, Jeff. And so we would stop and do planning, and we would go, right, okay, next 3 years, where do we want to be, right? And so once we'd work out where we want to be, say, for example, in 2001, we said in 2004 we want to be at 100 stores, right? And I was like, okay, that's great. That's 80 stores I've got to build. But interesting, you then work back from there. All right, if we want 100 stores, what do we need to do today to make that a reality? So in actual fact, the train was going so fast that I didn't see that how fast it was going. But, and are we there yet? We're far from there. Every single day you got to fight for your business. There's never a time when your business is done or you're successful because, a bit like COVID or, my husband actually has an analogy about a Volvo. A business is like a big old Volvo that's got 100 airbags all around it because you don't know where you're going to get hit. And that is honestly what businesses is.
Yeah. I feel like, I keep thinking the next stage will be easier or the next stage will be easy. And it's just always hard and evolving and different. But I like that because you never know where the challenges are going to come from. I think I've got a good idea. It's going to come from in front of me, but then just hit you on the side.
It's easy in different stages. So when you're little, like you're really baby stage, it's easy because you've got control of everything. You know where everything is, right? So in some respects, it's easy. On the other side of things, it's hard because you're doing everything, right? And so even if you might be good at the creative side, that's getting sucked up by the analytical side that you have to do, right? So in actual fact, it's easy and hard. Then when you're bigger, it's hard and easy. So it's suddenly easy because you've got the staff and the business to be able to do things, but it's hard because they don't do it like you do, or you've got different sort of challenges because it's a bigger business, so it's harder. So it's easy and hard at any level of your business. But interesting, when I was on Shark Tank, I was with someone was in pet food, someone was in IT, someone was in HR. So we all had different industries. Every single one of us thought that ours was the hardest. So, and so what sort of really is the reality is that everyone's business is just hard. It doesn't matter if you're selling juices or you're selling, cars. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we'll wrap this one up. So for fish pakoras, if I go all the way to the top here, you're feeling burnt out, you're not sure what to do, take the time away from the business, but just know that this stress is regular. A lot of people get to that point of burnout, but if you need to look after yourself and take that time away, because businesses are stressful, but you need to build those coping mechanisms, because this is something that is going to be there all the time, and it's going to change and it's going to reshape, and you're never going to know what exactly is going to happen differently. But if you have those coping mechanisms and you can take that time away from the business, you can think a whole lot more clearly. So just take some time away before you make any of these major decisions about keeping or selling your business. All right, and we'll move into our next challenge. So our next challenge is actually an email challenge. So this is called Food and Beverage Just Means Burnout. I love hospitality and would love to start an F&B business. I actually didn't know what F&B was before I had to research for this question, but it means food and beverage. So I want to start a food and beverage business. However, I keep hearing from others that it's a tough industry with long hours, low profit, and lots of burnout. What is the secret to scaling a food and beverage empire like yours? Are there particular food and beverage business models that lend well to success? From EQYH. And this one was actually written specifically for you, Janine. So they wanted to know that you are a food and beverage, I guess, like genius. So do you think there are different models within this that are particularly better than others?
Any business is successful if you get the right model right. Now you've got to create there's a guy the other day, right, talking about food and beverage. So he sells marshmallows, and he's gone nuts on TikTok, and he cannot keep up. He's got a factory. So it's not that the food and beverage business is harder than any other business. It's exactly the same. So people sort of go, oh, there's more failures, but that's actually not true. There's just more variety in food and beverage than there is, say, in the fashion industry or something. So I think the key thing is that what I said at the start is still relevant. Always be the customer, right? If you love it and you want to be the customer of your product, then that's a start. So always be the view of the customer. There is not a particular food that is worse or better. I think find what you're passionate about and find out what you want to do 24/7. and then that will be your success. But it has to taste amazing, right? Before anything else, the flavor has to be mind-boggling. The other thing it has to be is the service has to be incredible, and then you've got to find a really effective way of marketing it. But you've got to get that all right for it to work. If you get one wrong, it won't work. So you've got to get the marketing right, the product right, the customer service right, the service right. You've got to get it all right. But and you just got to keep at it to make sure you do. I mean, you might say to come up to me, Joel, and go, I just went to a boost. Now I don't know whether you're going to have a good experience or bad experience. We work really hard and making sure every experience is a good one, but shit happens. Sometimes it doesn't work out how you want it to work out. But so if you love food and beverage, then do it. At the end of the day, just get started, and then it'll come out how it will come out if you fight for it.
I guess, in the software world, and my business is very much in the software space, the whole kind of like idea behind a startup is start with the minimum viable product. Like what's the minimum thing you can start with? And they just say MVP, and that's all you hear in the startup space. Does that apply in the food and beverage? Like, can you start with just like a minimal version of your business, or do you need to get, the smoothies perfect? Do you need to get the stall out perfect? Like, how do you just get started? Because it feels like a bigger jump to begin.
I think, look, our first store that we did, which was in Adelaide, was a shocker. It was an ugly store. The system was okay without being really effective. I mean, you just learn every time. You go, okay, I got that one wrong. How do I now redo it or refit it out? Or, there's food and beverage. As I said, the marshmallow guy, he hasn't got a store. He just sends it out from his factory. So food doesn't have to come from an outlet necessarily. It can come from beverage. There's so many non-alcoholic drinks coming out at the moment. So there's so many options. There's a show I just did with Gordon Ramsay, and there's a lady who's got a Korean pear juice that actually stops you getting a hangover. So it is endless what type of products you can do in any industry. So to the question of how small, or is that the question? Can you be small?
Yeah, like it feels like the what you need to do to start a food and beverage business. It feels massive. Like you have to like get a factory to make marshmallows, or you have to like start with this beautiful store. But it sounds like
no. But if you look at any single product out there on the planet, it started with an idea. It started with wouldn't it be good if blah 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 blah, right? And so Tesla didn't start as Tesla. Nothing started as where it is now. It has to start somewhere, and it always starts small. Nothing. So I think the reality is just get started, and have your big visions, which is great, but make sure that what you're doing on that day is delivering on the promise to your customer. So if you haven't got a good customer service backup when there's complaints, well, you're failing. If your product's not amazing, it's failing. So some people sort of go into manufacturing and go, oh, it's kind of as good as it gets. You've got to be obsessive. You've got to be obsessive with the taste and obsessive with your product.
I love that.
And okay is not good enough.
Okay, so it really sounds like, getting started in food and beverage, it's the same just ideas as starting any business. So whether it's food and beverage or software or anything, is that you need to get hyper obsessed at the beginning over the value that you're giving to someone. So if it's a marshmallow, it better be a really fucking good marshmallow. Or if it's a smoothie, it better taste good. Or if it's a software, it better do what you say it's going to do. And you need to deliver on the promise that you're giving to someone when they come to you. And you don't need to start with a big fancy store with great branding or with a giant chain. You can start in food and beverage just like any other business with just the bare minimum. Like you can start very small with one smoothie, maybe to market, invest in your first store and just iterate it over time. But the whole idea behind food and beverage or starting any business, I love that you just repeat it over and over. It's like, just get started, start somewhere. But as long as you're passionate about the product that you're making and you can make a very good version of that product, that's all you need. Anything missed there?
No, I think you covered it.
Right, EQYH, you have been advised. And we've only got a little bit of time, so we're going to really rush this last question. So this is called building an audience. And I'm really excited because I feel like you are a marketing genius to get your kind of perspective on this. We're coming to market with our first product. We currently have next to no presence online and have not established a community yet. We are wanting to build a following on social media prior to showcasing our product. I know this will prove to be difficult. Building the community prior to a pre-launch campaign. Has anyone out there nailed this technique and care to share some tips in doing so? This is from Audema Labs. Now, I feel like I wanted to kind of step a little bit bigger than this, is that you have built, like, for a long time, there was this almost like cult following of Boost in Australia. Like everyone was drinking Boost all the time. Like, how did you build that brand? How did you get people to feel that way about
One customer at a time.
one customer at a time?
Genuinely, it's one customer at a time. It's like you make sure every single customer is like gold. But we're in. I mean, again, we did the first Boost store opened 23 years ago, and so the landscape is very different now, and you can get traction really quickly. So and I think you've got to just be prepared to fail. Like as I said, follow the Marshmallow Company, and have a look what they're doing. Follow other people who have got millions and millions of followers, and find out how they're cracking the code, because all they're doing is they're starting with one video that went viral. But to get that one video, he had to do 100 to work out which video was the one that goes viral. So, and it's just like, oh, that didn't work, I'll give up, or that platform doesn't work for me, I tried, try again. Like, you just got to keep at it. And it's the businesses that understand social media and are prepared to actually keep working at it that are successful. Do a course, do a course on it, or follow people that are giving tips. We're in a whole new era now of the speed of where we're going to have change because of AI is going to be it's already mind blowing. It's not like it's going to be, it is here. So I think the key thing is that you have such a great opportunity if you can crack the code on social media. I think Twitter is, I don't know what your product is, but if it's between 18 and 35 years old as a target market, then Twitter is really killing it if you can make sure you make it noisy. Instagram has a different platform, but they're changing algorithms, so you've got to actually really understand it to be able to maximize it. Facebook, I don't know what Facebook's doing. I don't even know what Twitter, who's now X. I don't even think they know what they're doing yet. So, find the platform that works for you and really focus on it. I mean, my son is a guy called Riley, who actually has a YouTube channel called Major Kill, who is one of the world leading experts in the game of Warhammer. And not that he's an expert, but he's actually an expert in YouTubing and making an absolute killing, and is highly successful in that space. So, and he did it. Like he worked for 2 years, and that didn't work, and then suddenly one of his clips worked, and so he really studied why that worked, and he did more of it. So it's just I don't think there's a folder that you can pick up and go, if you do this, that happens. But I think that authenticity and following people who have got the followers, because their audience is telling you whatever they're delivering for their audience, the audience wants more of. I mean, he would get 3-4 million people following him on, not following him, liking him on a post about marshmallows.
That is wild. Well, there's so much I want to dig into there because I've seen so much about the way you think about marketing online, but we are coming to the end of our time, so I'm going to try and wrap this one up. But it sounds like if you want to build a community that people really care about, you have to take it one customer at a time. And I love that kind of approach, because if you really add value to that one person, then they're going to talk to their friends and their friends and their friends. So start small and work out what people actually get value out of. But then as a way to kind of like scale that massively, there are plenty of kind of platforms out there that you can do now. And like social media, that needs to be a key part. If you're doing any kind of consumer business, social media is your hack to building marketing there. And you need to get good at it. And if you're not good at it, maybe work with someone who can get good at it. But it sounds like social media, just like anything, is going to take work and work and work to understand out what works for you, because there aren't any, easy wins. It's not just like do a 60-second video and it works. Like, you need to work out the formula there. But we're going to close that one out, and we're just going to go very quickly to the end because Janine has a tight schedule here. But the last part of the show is called plugs. So what's going on, Janine? What would you like to plug today?
Oh, what do I want to plug? Look, I suppose it's not really a plug. It's just letting people know that business is tough, right? And sometimes you don't know which direction you need to go in. And so we're currently doing the Business Academy, which is all the lessons I've learned in the last 23 years, put in a format that is simple, but what they get out of it at the end of it isn't just a certificate to say, well done, you've done a course, woohoo. You actually get a D-Day document plan, which you can go back into your business and actually make a tangible difference in your business, which that's what I'm about. I'm not about just going, hey, this is what you do in marketing and this is what an archetype is, and which is all interesting and good. But really what I want people to leave with is actually a practical plan that they can implement into their business. So there you go. There's a plug.
I love it. Well, we're going to put links to that. We're also going to put links to all of Janine's socials as well, so you can follow along. I personally love Janine's LinkedIn. I don't know if you're writing it, Janine, but there is amazing content and amazing stories about your journey constantly coming out there. So it's really fun to follow along. And on my side, always like and subscribe. Get out your phone right now, like and subscribe on all of your favorite platforms. And as I always say, I completely condone stealing if it's just for this reason. So go steal a phone, like and subscribe on their phone and give it back because they'll love the podcast too. And thanks to everyone who writes in. We love these questions. Specifically, thank you to EQYH. We loved your question about food and beverage. And if you have any questions, send them through to podcast@joelditrapani.com. And that's everything. So we're going to wrap this one up. Janine, honestly, thank you so much for coming on today. This was a whole lot of fun. I'm still shocked and I really enjoyed this conversation. And to everyone else, this has been another episode of the Do As I Say podcast. We'll see you all next week.